Hello, and you are listening to The Book Was Better, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Courtney.
And this week we're talking about Planet of the Apes. Tim Burton version.
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
Holy crap, we are back on an actual planet full of apes.
Not a comet, not a dwarf planet, an actual planet.
You know, if you look at the reboots, the recent ones with Caesar, not really a Planet of the Apes. It's kind of like a small area of the woods of the apes. They keep promising a Planet of the Apes.
An acre of the apes.
The Acre of the Apes would be far more apt, but no. Back in, when was this?
2001.
2001.
A great year, wasn't it,
Yeah,
guys?
this is the second worst thing to happen in 2001. Tim Burton reimagined Planet of the Apes to an unsuspecting audience, because there were, 5 Planet of the Apes movies originally?
Yeah, so I have since become an expert on Planet of the Apes, because I'd already seen the first one and obviously seen the new films. All the other ones, though, I never got around to watching. You should, because they're pretty awesome. Although that 5th one, bit rubbish. So just watch the first 4, they're great.
Well, the 5th one, though, is probably the one that has inspired the most the recent movie.
Yeah, so
That storyline. Dawn or Rise?
4 and 5 of the original series are a lot like the plotline of the new films.
So the original films are Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes,
Which is an acid trip.
Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where they go back in time to the 70s.
Yeah, it's like the whale movie in the Star Trek franchise.
And then they become the persecuted ones.
Yeah.
Everything gets turned on its head. Then there's Conquest
Yeah.
of the Planet of the Apes.
Which is all about their Zira and Cornelius's son, Caesar, who rebels against society, and that's the beginning of the ape uprising.
And then Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Which is just a very small battle between some Mad Max type radiated mutants and some apes.
But if we go back to that original one, it's really, there's a lot of social commentary, right? It's a lot about prejudice and segregation and rights and what makes us human.
Yeah, it's a very 60s, 70s, no, what would you call it? Yeah, commentary.
It's a parable.
Yes.
Whereas now, Burton, now as in 2001, playing very loose with the time stream in this episode, but now it's not motivated by any of those ideals and comments that were made in the 60s version. It's really just motivated by nostalgia.
Yeah, like, what could we do with this big budget and really great special effects and just adapt Planet of the Apes for the 21st century?
This is Burton saying, this is something I enjoyed as a kid. I want to play around in that playground, and I want you all to watch me play around in this playground.
Yeah, and the message is really inconsistent. Like, they seem to be trying to make metaphors, but then the rules in its own universe are inconsistent, so it doesn't work.
So now, that's the serious part. I've just done the serious part. But the thing is, if you look at the Book Was Better show Bible, which is our big manual, it's quite large now, 132 episodes in, of all the characters, behaviours, etc. It is canon that one of my absolute favourite things in the world is crazy monkeys going apeshit.
Yeah.
So, bearing in mind that there's probably a few crazy monkeys going apeshit in this film, this should, in theory, be the absolute best film I have ever seen in my life, right?
Well, in theory, yeah, because there is actually a scene where an ape goes ape for at least a minute or two, for no reason whatsoever.
Just goes absolutely ape shit. He's got a little cigar, he's got roller skates, he's driving around in a police car. I love all that stuff. So, really, this should be wonderful. And it stars everyone's favourite perpetrator of race hate crimes, allegedly. Marky Mark. So that's really exciting. He's in there. He's given the apes a run for their money, that's for sure.
Yeah, why would you cast someone like him to be up against apes? It's hard to tell the difference sometimes.
I know, he's up there beating his chest, hollering, showing his canines. Absolutely,
Mark, calm down.
absolutely crazy. He didn't even know it was a movie. He just knew that they were different and he wanted to fight them. Which allegedly is what a lot of his youth was like.
I got my ape noise out really early.
Oh, I know. Well, look, that is just hopefully the precedent because let's go ape shit on the planet of the apes. So this is written by John Whitman. Now, I know you've done a ton of research, Courtney, but did you actually look at John Whitman, the author?
I was too afraid.
Okay, well, have a look at this. I'm going to bring him up. I encourage everybody to Google him. Here we go. Now, that doesn't look like your typical author, right?
He looks like he could fight me and you with just one arm.
Huge guns, huge muscles. Looking at us like he's on an action movie poster, arms crossed, and I had to write in this bit of bio from him. American novelist and martial arts instructor. He's a 5th degree black belt and defensive tactics instructor in Krav Maga.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga, well, it's 2 words, so I'm going to pause. And has trained in protective services and defensive tactics in both the United States and Israel. Whitman teaches civilian, military, and law enforcement personnel and has served as an instructor for elite military units in the United States and abroad. So all of that, plus he wrote The Mummy Returns, Big Fat Liar, with Malcolm in the Middle in it.
Oh, God, I haven't thought about it in a long time.
And a whole bunch of Star Wars Galaxy of Fear books, which are like the R.L. Stine Goosebumps of Star Wars. They're the same, shape, format,
Okay.
kind of look, and things like the Brain Spiders and Ghost of the Jedi.
Did you know I didn't know what Goosebumps was until that new movie came out? I'm like, what is this new thing? No, it's been around for a while.
You must have slept through that one. That was pretty big. So this is a novelization who could absolutely, totally kick our ass.
Yeah, he's like Bane, he's got the literary skills, but he's also able to kick your ass.
I mean, to be fair, Joan D. Vinch could probably kick my ass. But that said, here is a guy. I guess you've got to develop a pretty thick skin when you're writing Malcolm in the Middle movie vehicle novelizations.
Wasn't Paul Giamatti in that as well?
No, I wouldn't put it past him. Paul Giamatti will do anything for a bucket of chicken.
I'm pretty sure he was dyed blue in that too.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's coming back.
Would not surprise me. So, here we go. John Whitman. We better be a little bit careful about what we say because he could probably just punch us over Skype even. That's how trained and how willing he is to sort of infiltrate a situation and fuck shit up.
Oh, I also should say at this point that actually, it's not unusual for me to basically take it upon myself to be the science advisor, which this movie desperately needed. So I'll be pointing out any sort of logical inconsistency, of which there are many.
Yes, I'm sure that all our listeners are very much looking forward to being schooled on science by a small child. So here we go. The beginning. The flight pod bucked as it skimmed the edge of Jupiter's gravity well. The pilot leaned forward and slapped a control lever with the lazy confidence of someone who'd followed the routine 100 times. The turbulence subsided.
The pilot tugged at the monitoring vest strapped to his chest. Comfortable with navigational procedures, he was just as uncomfortable with his uniform. He had never been able to find one that fit him right.
Something like the way that Whitman's toying with us with the pilot kind of feels like we're heading towards some kind of reveal. And sure enough, the pilot leaned forward anxiously. As he did, his face fell into the light of the alarm beacon and was reflected in the screen.
His face was framed by a thick dark hair, his dark round eyes stared intently down the control panel, and the nostrils on his flat nose flared nervously. He was a handsome chimpanzee.
The pilot flung his own feces at the control panel while furiously masturbating. Crazy apes. Going apeshit. We didn't mention as well, this is the junior novelization, although we had both, and you looked at both. We had the adult one as well.
Yeah, so I read, the first few pages of both, probably 5-10 pages, and honestly, the junior novelization had much more fun with the prose and actually thought things through really well and added something to admittedly quite flawed story, whereas the adult one it was so dull and it wasn't written that well.
And plus it was wicked shorter. And if that first reveal wasn't enough, and this film is all about reveals, here's another helping.
All at once the alarm ceased, the view screens froze and the cabin lights went up. Captain Leo Davidson, late 20s and carrying himself with the confidence of a man who'd spent a career navigating the hostile environment of space, slid up alongside the chimp pilot, or...
On the screen.
On the screen, a text message popped up. Simulation paused. End program. YN.
Why? A billion times why? So Leo, which is Marky Mark, and the chimp is called Pericles. They work on a space station, Oberon, for the USA. And they want to go to Jupiter, to open up a McDonald's or something like that, probably.
So Pericles is an ancient Greek politician, and Oberon is the king of the fairies in A Midsummer Night's Dream, so I get the feeling they're just picking names at random because they sound cool.
Leo is a astrological sign.
Yeah. Well, at least that's something.
And there are other primates hanging out on the Oberon too. The orangutan was slowly inputting sequences in response to signals on the screen. Every time he punched in the right code, he'd be rewarded with a mango. And if you look at the behind-the-scenes stuff, the same thing happened to Mark Wahlberg every time he completed a scene. He was very mango-rich by the end of this film. And this surprised me. There is a woman in space. How did she get up there?
What? Dr. Alexander nuzzled Pericles' face. Was the Homo sapiens mean to you again? She glanced at Leo disapprovingly. We all know it's just rocket envy.
How can women do science when all they have is dicks on the mind? What a distraction. But at least Whitman doesn't go into about how hot she is. You know, she's a scientist. And, a page later...
He'd flown a dozen mid-range space missions before the age of 30, and he was top man on Oberon's flight list. He certainly wasn't going to back down from a doctor, no matter how good-looking she was.
In fact, so while she then drones on about monkeys and science, he's really just secretly musing over the next page how he'd like her to ask him out. Women, am I right?
Oh yes, women scientists apparently distract men, fall in love with them, and then cry when criticised, all according to Tim Hunt, who was a Nobel Prize winner, so apparently being smart doesn't automatically make you less of an arse.
And you know what, speaking of distractions, did you notice that this book has the most ADD page layout ever?
Oh god, yes.
Like, this double page spread where this excerpt's from has a tribal border along the bottom that has all these pictures of apes' heads, and then another fainter border down the right-hand side of bigger, different ape heads, which is underneath the text, which makes it an absolute shithead to read. And then there's an inset drawing of a gorilla doing, I swear to God, a pole dance. I'm just going to bring that up for you, Courtney.
I've seen that.
Look at this guy go. Look at him. Look at him earn those dollars.
And then, towards the end, there's more and more of them. Yeah, this is great entertainment for the audience who cannot see what we're looking at. But, yeah, look. By the end, you've got 3 apes on a page.
And they look like Planet of the Apes wingdings or something. It's crazy. But look, back to the story. The shit hits the fan when Electromagnetic Storm approaches, and Leo wants to fly around it. They send Pericles, the chimp, instead, but he quickly disappears into space. He's no longer responding to any of their calls. So Leo, proud American, defies orders, and he just goes out into the pod himself.
Sorry, Commander, Leo's voice came back over the speaker. Never send a monkey to do a man's job.
This is Mark Wahlberg we're talking about here, though, right? Interesting.
Okay.
And then, yeah, shit really gets real. His only answer came on the wings of the storm. As Leo felt his lungs struggle for breath, a brilliant pulse burst from the center of the electromagnetic disturbance and raced toward him. It struck the pod and tossed it like a toy boat on a tidal wave. Leo was jerked around and felt his ribs nearly break as his body slammed against the safety belts. Light and sounds reappeared inside the pod, and Leo vaguely realized that his power was back on, but he was still out of control. Dials spun madly. The clock on the command console was running at high speed, hours and dates flashing by. Now, this is surprisingly well written for a junior novelization. And actually, as you said, yeah, he does a good job. It's a junior novelization, but not one that sort of lazily gets from A to B. And I'm not just saying that because the author could punch me into the sun.
I could probably do that to you, basically.
Or maybe. But yeah, we all, credit where credit's due. This is a pretty good junior novelization in terms of the actual quality of the writing, until the, plot sort of burdens it later.
Yeah, it's not his fault. But yeah, so that electromagnetic storm, that comes up a lot in sci-fi. Like, there are a few Star Trek episodes where they go, oh, a weird thing happened because of an electromagnetic storm. And it does happen in reality, but it's more a case of it affects you when you're on Earth. It's called a geomagnetic storm. And it's basically, it causes a temporary disturbance of the Earth's magnetosphere, which is caused by solar wind. And yeah, so because it interrupts the magnetic field, basically the result is a nice view if you're closer to the poles, because the aurora borealis is a lot stronger. Although you don't want to be at a high altitude because you risk exposure to cosmic rays, which unfortunately won't turn you into a superhero. And the most damage it can cause is it can damage some electrical equipment, but no time travel, sorry. Oh, and yeah, so they could have explained that away with a wormhole, although I'm told that Hollywood producers, especially nowadays, don't like the term wormhole. It seems too 90s. So if you notice in Thor, it's called an Einstein-Rosenberg bridge, I think it's called. Einstein-Rosen bridge. And basically they just didn't want to use the word wormhole. It's the same thing. But yeah, another way around it would have been if they literally just copied the original film and put the characters in suspended animation. So they just sleep until they get to the future. Because traveling to the future is very easy. Traveling to the past is a different story.
As far as this whole story is concerned, he could have farted himself into the future and it would have made about as much difference.
Also, now I'm thinking, I hope the neighbours haven't heard us doing all the ape noises. I'm sorry.
Oh, they'll love it. And look, it doesn't let up. This story really just hits into high gear here. He crashes into some weird alien jungle and then...
Is it really a weird alien jungle? It just looks like a jungle to me.
It's weird and alien to him, kind of. And at the same moment, a figure burst through the trees. It was definitely human, but it was like no human Leo had ever seen. The man was half naked and carried a mesh sack made of vines. I find it hard to believe that he's never seen a half-naked man with a big sack before. I think that would be a pretty common occurrence.
Ew. So, Leo was about to speak when another human appeared through the bushes. It was a young woman, beautiful, beneath a layer of dirt.
So all he needs is a garden hose. He's got himself a party happening.
So basically, a young woman, comma, beautiful. Could not even wait a sentence to establish what she looked like.
And look, unlike the original film, I feel the biggest problem with this is that it blows its ape load far too early. Like, the other one really had them going, oh, we're on this planet, we don't know where we are, we don't know how we're going to survive, we're kind of investigating, and it took a little while before...
There's a good half an hour of them just going, oh god, what are we going to do? It's deserted.
And I know the title gives away what they're going to find, but still, this one suddenly... humans run and Leo quickly sees what is chasing them.
It was a gorilla. Only it couldn't be gorilla because it was wearing armor across its massive chest and its head was covered with a tall helmet.
Yes, there's the guy whose work colleague is a chimpanzee in a spacesuit.
Yeah, impossible to put apes in clothes.
And it turns out there's an army of gorillas who are catching humans in nets. So these humans clearly have not invented knives. And Leo figures that if anyone should be attacking the indigenous community, it should be America. So he leaps into the fray, attacking a gorilla who is riding a horse. But sadly, for Leo, it kind of ends more like Vietnam.
The gorilla snorted and raised a foot, then it stomped down on Leo's head. Everything went dark.
The end. All right. Thank you, Courtney. That was fantastic. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Unfortunately, unlike in real life, if you are rendered unconscious for more than 15 seconds, you will have permanent brain damage. In movies, you can do that all the time and you'll be perfectly fine.
I'm not convinced he didn't have permanent brain damage when he reawoke. Atta is the gorilla soldier played by Michael Clark Duncan. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And he contemplates his job.
You know what? He looks fantastic as the gorilla. He was really cool. He was probably one of the better apes.
Even though Atta was just following orders, he'd never felt a lack of job satisfaction. He knew that humans were wild and dangerous animals, and they had to be kept in their place no matter what it took. His is a gigantic gorilla. And humans are so wild and dangerous that they basically catch them in nets like fish or butterflies.
Yeah, I mean, he must be a real gorilla is about 3 times the weight of an adult male human. And they have the strength about 3 times that of a human. What are you worried about? It would be like, oh, these chihuahuas are dangerous. Well, the Beverly Hills chihuahuas are dangerous, but that's another story.
Running around and punching toddlers. And Leo wakes up and is surprised that a gold-gowned gorilla spoke.
Gold-gowned gorilla.
Gold-gowned gorilla. Gold-gowned gorilla. Gold-gowned gorilla.
Sounds like an Anchorman warm-up. So, Leo grabbed the gorilla by the wrist. You talk? Take your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty human. The gorilla snarled.
Everything is topsy-turvy! You're a visionary, Burton. So, in the originals, bloody Heston said, get your hands off me, you ape. And in this one, the ape says it to Marky Mark. Like, this is a bold reimagining.
Oh, yeah, and then later on, Charlton Heston plays a chimpanzee. It's actually... Well, he's called Zaius, but he's a chimpanzee. Dr. Zaius, if you're not aware, he was an orangutan in the original. So, anyway, but still, Burton, you are cray.
Cray.
So the language thing is something that's always bothered me about Planet of the Apes, because... it's not throughout the entire franchise. Sometimes they're a little more consistent than other times. But in the originals, humans don't speak it at all because they've apparently forgotten how to. Like, the language center of their brain has literally atrophied over the course of, 2,000 years? Unlikely, but passable. The apes speak a version of English that we speak now. Oh, exactly identical. It never changed. There's not even slang that we don't recognize. I mean, if you watch movies from the 80s, there's slang we don't recognize. Anyway, although that's unlikely, I get that it saves the hassle of trying to translate. I mean,
language in movies, yeah.
Yeah, like Stargate kind of tries but then gives up halfway through. But you're telling me that when these apes are confronted by a talking human, they still doubt his sentience. It would be, yeah, I mean, if your dog or your cat started talking to you, would you be like, I'm just going to treat you like a pet, every other pet, yep.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, because they are always having these debates, like, are humans intelligent? I'm not so sure. When the human standing there could be like, oh yeah, no, we are. No, we're fine. We're following everything. Thanks, I've got a doctorate.
Yeah, and I think this film in particular is the most inconsistent, because... So the humans do talk, but then they don't really communicate directly with the apes. You know, like they'll talk to Marky Mark, but no one else. So what metaphor are you going for here?
Yeah, speak up for yourself, dudes. This is interesting.
Leo woke up miserable, lying under the legs of a half-naked and sweaty man with hair covering most of his body.
What is this? The Hangover 3? Ha! And the apes have humans pulling the slave carts, even though we know they have horses.
Maybe they just, were inspired by Lady Gaga when she was carried in by all those half-naked men.
So impractical.
Yeah.
Leo grabbed the bars of the cage and dragged himself onto his feet, staring at the city as they passed beneath a great stone gate. Gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, and other simians were everywhere. Gorillas dressed in elegant flowing robes, orangutans dressed in short workman-like leather tunics, young apes squealing at each other and dodging in and out of the crowds of adult gorillas, passing along the streets, each with his own business in mind. My God, Courtney, it's like some kind of Planet of the Apes he stumbled into here.
What a twist!
And when a female ape stops some kids from throwing rocks at Leo...
She was still staring at the caged humans, and Leo, staring back, caught her eyes. He felt her staring right into him, and the sensation was disturbing. Hers were the first kind eyes he'd seen all day. Then why was it disturbing? They looked human and full of clear thoughts, but they stared out of the face of an ape.
Any port in a storm, right? What happens in Ape City stays in Ape City as far as I'm concerned.
Let's face it, Helena Bonham Carter has never looked better.
Yeah, kinda, like, no furry, but,
she's weirdly attractive.
looks kinda good in this thing.
It's weird, right?
If you were in a strange place and you thought you were stranded there, I reckon you'd give it a shot. We meet comedy orangutan, a slave lord, Paul Limbo Giamatti.
No, he was disturbing. He was really
He looked
creepy.
pretty weird, and he's here for some comic relief. Suddenly, Limbo himself appeared between them. He sneered. Very touching, really. I can't see for the tears in my eyes. Now move. The orangutan snatched a handful of Dana's hair. Dana is the beautiful dirt-covered human woman, and dragged her out of the crowd. To the female pen! Limbo also punches a boy in the throat, so he might already be my favourite character.
God, Dana is so useless though. She's got the big blue googly eyes and the blonde hair, and she's useless.
She's covered in filth. And oddly, when Thade, the head ape, turns up, played by Tim Roth in the film, he's not described at all, other than being referred to as the lead gorilla, but he's clearly not a gorilla if you look at the movie or the photo section, or surely they had designs or something.
Yeah, because when I read it before watching the film, I was really confused and going, wait, is that Michael Clarke Duncan's character? Yeah. And let me tell you about Thade. He is the biggest piece of shit. He's the absolute worst. And I don't even know, I honestly do not know what he's trying to do half the time. You know, he just randomly snarls when people are having a conversation with him, or...
I do love Tim Roth, but he's very raspy and hoarse, and he just kind of sounds uncomfortable at times.
It's like he's constipated through the entire film, just cannot shit.
Tim Roth cannot shit. You heard it here first. Trying to go ape shit, can't. Everybody else is going ape shit. Crazy monkeys. Tim Roth can't. Constipated.
No, too constipated.
You need some of those ape laxatives. I liked this though.
Leo had commanded himself to relax, and following the example of the other humans to submit to the apes.
Took 3 tubes of lube though.
That's the thing about astronauts though, is that I think Charlton Heston really captured the mindset of an astronaut. I've heard
when he was shown smoking on the spaceship at the beginning.
Yeah, he's
fuck your air supply.
But just that he's just so focused on the task at hand, and he's not bothered at all. He never freaks out. I think Leo is less of the astronaut. He's like, oh, I'm scared, I don't know what's going on. Oh, no. Charlton Heston really does capture that. I don't give a shit. I've got to survive. I've got to get through this, so I'm just going to do what I have to.
I really think that Ash, especially in Army of Darkness, is inspired by Heston in Apes. And if you don't believe me, watch again and see what you think.
No, actually, no, now you say that, I have to watch it again for the 600th time.
And Leo and the dirty female Dana are safe from execution when they are branded and sold to the sexy female chimp, which is Ari.
Which just makes me think of the character in, Entourage, yeah.
And she believes that humans might be smart after all, so she's the one that has this crazy notion. Let's see if she still thinks that, though, once she's seen the rest of this film. And Ari takes them home, and her father, Sandar, is distressed because...
The sound of a bell trilled down the corridors. "My guests are here," Sandar said. He cast a warning glance at his daughter. "Ari, I want you to be on your best behaviour. Keep those savages out of sight, especially away from General Thade." So
basically his boss is coming over to dinner. Did this just morph into a sitcom from the 50s?
Yeah, it kind of keeps going that way.
It's like an episode of Bewitched. And by the way, ape dinner conversation is absolutely balls. It goes on too long in the film, too long in the book. The movie, for me, completely falls apart here because it blew its ape load way too early, and now it really has nowhere to go. It doesn't have the same commentary as the original.
Yeah, there's no proper pacing or build-up, and also it's apparent that they blew their budget on, admittedly, amazing makeup and special effects, but they didn't give a shit about redubbing any of the dialogue. Especially in this scene, it's really obvious. Everyone's having difficulty with their false teeth.
Now, the apes do have a religion, though, and I mention that because I guess it might be important later. They all lowered their faces, and Attar began to pray. "We give thanks to you, Semos, for the fruit of the land. Bless us, Holy Father, who created all apes in his image. Hasten the day when you will return and bring peace to your children. Amen."
Oh, this might be, because it is a dinner scene, an appropriate place to talk about how diet is one of the major reasons why human brains are unique. Because, no, I have a theory that you could totally do Planet of the Apes without having to do all the mad science, right? Bear with me. Okay.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Fan theory. I just need to...
All right, I'm gonna be convinced of the relevance of this very soon. School us.
I have...
School our belligerent, ignorant audience.
I've condensed this quite considerably. Basically, our brains consume a lot of energy. We have 86 billion neurons, 16 billion of which are located in the cerebral cortex. And that's, as you probably know, the source of functions like awareness and logical and abstract reasoning. So, if we ate a raw diet like apes do, we would have to eat pretty much all day. But then 1.5 million years ago, we invented cooking, and that was a means of pre-digesting food, so we didn't have to spend so much energy on that. And there's very strong evidence to show that culture from that point onward rapidly evolved. So hypothetically, you could do a Planet of the Apes where apes simply followed that same path without any mad science or any kind of uprising or genetic manipulation, whatever. Humans, I think we could do a pretty good job of wiping ourselves out, so that would leave apes pretty free to do whatever they want, become the most dominant species. Then an astronaut would just have to travel a few million years into the future, and they have it. Planet of the Apes.
My question is always, in these science fiction films or superhero films or whatever, when people question the science and say, well, this wouldn't really happen like this, if everything adhered to the rules of science and was plausible,
yes,
would it make for better films?
No, I'm just really serious about science, Luke.
Okay.
So serious. But if you want to know more about that, I was mostly looking at a video, What's So Special About the Human Brain on TED. It's pretty interesting.
He concludes at the end, not much. And they also have politics. They broke the silence that followed Ari's controversial statement. Your ideas threaten our prosperity. The human problem will not be solved by throwing money at it. The government tried once, and all we got was a welfare state that nearly bankrupted us. Yeah, stupid Obamacare.
Well, actually, it should be more like, the government tried once. That's what he sounds like. Where's Harvey Dent? But, oh god, the classic films are honestly so much smarter than this. I know it looked kind of campy and the rubber masks and everything, but it had a point. It had a social commentary, and, that is what I would deem proper science fiction. It's speculative. And really, as I said before, all this film really does serve to show us is, hey, what would it be like if we made those movies but on a bigger budget, but just forgot about the script?
This film is like Tim Burton making you pay him to watch him whack.
Yeah, apparently he hated making this film, so who approached him? Why? Because I know he likes Planet of the Apes as a franchise. I don't understand.
This does not add up.
Money, I guess. Money makes things happen even when they shouldn't.
And this is such a hardcore junior novel. Like, Thade still comments that everything in human culture takes place below the waist. and Attar claims that the senator's daughter flirts with blasphemy. You know, all the things that the kids are really into.
Yeah.
And by the way, Thade, it's established, is hot for Ari. But, I mean, again, who can blame him? Like, he's only human. Well, he's not human, he's an ape, but she's pretty hot. And that night, Leo, he picks the lock. He and Dana and house slave Taval escape. But Bon, who's the other house slave, will not come with them.
Leo waited 1 second longer and then turned away. He didn't have time to deal with people who didn't want their freedom.
America? Fuck yeah, these colours don't run. And then the escapees liberate Dana's father and the other slaves.
The old man Karubi stepped out, followed by the wild-looking boy named what?
Burn. Sick Burn.
Sick Burn. So the third young man, Dana called Gunnar.
Yeah, which pissed him off because his name was Steve. And then they get intercepted by Ari, but Leo convinces her to escape with him. You said humans were capable of culture. You are right. I'll prove it to you. I can prove it beyond your wildest dreams. And then they go and sit down and watch the Human Centipede trilogy. Excellent.
I saw the trailer for the newest one. Oh god, wow.
It's a big centipede.
Oh no.
And then-
Eric Roberts is in it. That's the worst part.
And Thade finds out about Ari's betrayal. He kills the lagging Karubi and sets out after the escapees. But fuck all that. It's photo section time. And it's kind of a game this time. I feel like it's spot the difference between the ape and Marky Mark. Like, look at this Marky Mark and a chimp giving the thumbs up. It's like looking into a mirror.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent. And
I hate the cone head helmets, but those are in the original film, just not that dramatic.
I do like the Thade design.
Yeah, he's one of the coolest looking apes in the franchise. It's just too bad he's the biggest dickhead.
And you've highlighted your favourite caption?
Oh, my favourite caption is Dana kicks some serious ape butt.
Yeah, if there's one thing we should be serious about, it's ape butt. So, back in the jungle, Leo shows them all his pod, by which I mean not his pods, his crashed pod.
Just then, Leo came out of the pod carrying a metallic box. Leo felt something touch his leg and he recoiled, only to realise it was Dana. And then he kept recoiling because he realised it was Dana. He nodded to her, but her eyes were no longer on him. He turned to look in the direction her eyes were bulging.
At his crotch, he was still wearing the Boogie Nights prosthetic. But no, there are 2 dead gorillas in the water, so somebody's already found the pod, and his messenger app suggests that help is already somewhere on the planet. They're already here looking for him. And Leo is a real fucking jerk in this scene.
Just this scene?
Well, like, he's blabbering away about how he's from the USA and how he flies around and shit in, like, space and in the air, and this conversation happens.
You're apes, Taval said. They let you fly? Leo laughed at the sheer lunacy of this situation. A human asking him if monkeys gave permission to do anything. He said, our apes live in zoos. They do what we tell them. He ignored Ari's startled and offended reaction.
Does he not think to say that he worked on a space station which was full of super smart science-doing apes that underwent valuable training, and that his best pal was a chimp who he risked his own life for? Like, he could say all that, but instead he's like, shitty monkeys live in cages at the zoos. They're fucking shithill. Screw them. Fuck monkeys. It's like, you were the, like, leading person for ape activism.
Yeah, if he spent that much time with apes, you would start to kind of like them a bit, I think.
Like, if your whole job is working with apes, and then someone goes, what are apes? You go, oh, you know, they're in the zoo. Like, no, dude, you work with them. You see them every day.
That's not your only interaction with them. Oh, God.
Next time you give Pericles the thumbs up, he's going to give you the middle finger, pal. And Leo then also, he hasn't finished, pulls a gun out and starts swaggering around like it's his superpowered dick. And when Limbo appears to try and get his property back, I mean, they were his slaves, Leo shoots at his feet and makes him dance. What a total prick. But luckily,
before Leo could stop him, Kroll smashed the gun against a rock. It broke into several pieces. No, Leo yelled. Ari looked at Leo disapprovingly. Who would invent such a horrible device?
Americans. It's always Americans. More plot bullshit. Thade sees his dying father, who lets him know that once upon a time, humans actually did rule over apes, and he's got a gun of his own, which he's hidden away in order to prove that. And it's all something to do with their god Semos, and he has to stop the humans before they reach the forbidden sacred place called Kalima.
Kalima!
Kalima! And sure enough, Marky Mark is already right on the outskirts, which are guarded by...
A line of apes stood along the ridge of the hill, but they were effigies, scarecrow apes, nearly twice the size of Kroll, guarding the land beyond the hills against the invaders.
And this is a total lesson for Game of Thrones. Like, why build a giant wall when you can just make a couple of scarecrows? Far more cost effective.
Wasn't Kroll that shitty novelization / movie that we reviewed?
Yes,
yeah.
He's also Ari's guerrilla bodyguard sort of person.
That film did not stick in my mind at all. I feel like it was a fever dream.
It's got Liam Neeson in it. And Thade also has a waiting army in a large camp, so blocking the way to Kalima, and Leo sets it alight.
Not slowing down a bit, Leo raced by a watchfire and leaned over, snatching a firebrand from the edge of the flames. Then he hurled it to the nearest tent. By the time he wheeled around, the tent was already ablaze. And seconds later, neighbouring pavilions had been lit by sparks as well. In moments, the camp was burning.
Nothing like an American coming to a foreign country and burning down the camp of a group of good soldiers who are merely trying to protect their most sacred religious artifacts. And he is the hero of the book, of course. So the heroes camp the night, and Leo may not have just won the battle. Leo felt her hand on his, human and totally inhuman at the same time. Part of him recoiled at the intimacy in that contact, but another part appreciated her concern. Whatever else she was, Ari was a thinking being, and she had developed an affection for him, and just maybe he had developed the same for her. He's succumbing.
This is becoming fanfiction.
Succumbing to her great beauty. I wonder if there is fanfiction.
Oh, of course there is. Do we want to look at that now like he did in Cars?
I don't know.
I think we've already... I've packed this out with so much other stuff that I wanted to talk about. Maybe not.
And Dana, the human, of course, has to lift her game now.
No matter how much her tribe resented apes and the civilization, the apes, at least, were clean. She wondered what it would be like to truly scrub clean a lifetime of dirt from her body. She stepped into the cold water and promised that a new woman would emerge.
So she's 20-something years old, and she's only just now had the idea to bathe. She's looking at the water and going, wait a minute.
It never rained, the water... She never got in water ever. Okay.
God, I can't even imagine what she smells like. And they go to the origin of the signal, which is the birthplace of the apes, but nothing's there except for some human skulls and strange metal tunnels and... Oh no, do you think it could possibly be?
As the dirt fell away, Leo found himself staring at a metal wall, and on that wall was the icon of the starship Oberon.
And it had once read, "Caution, live animals," but most of the letters had faded away and only a few remained. Ka-li-ma!
Oh, come on, we did that trope much better in Beast Lords.
It's funny how Beast Lords really is a collection of things, just even subconsciously, that have just tropes that have been in films.
Yeah, it was so easy just to pull from all those things we've seen over and over again, especially because the two of us watch so many, many movies. But, yes, we had Kalinia instead of California. But, okay, so...
And I didn't, when I was writing that, I wasn't thinking of this. I didn't remember that at all. It's just one of those things that I guess floats around in the ether.
Beast Lords for life, man. Never forget. But yeah, I'll give... sorry, what's the author's name again? He's going to beat me up if I don't remember.
Whitmore, I think.
Whitmore, yeah.
Yes.
So, at least he says the letters have faded away, whereas in the film, it's simply covered by dust. Marky Mark just wipes it off. And then the sign reappears. Really? None of the apes, these intelligent apes, none of them went, hey man, if that, no, didn't think about wiping it, no.
Yeah, this is our absolutely, holy place, but let's not wipe those bits. And no dust formed on the other letters over the years either, so...
And for some reason, all the circuitry and everything inside the ship, totally fine. I don't care if the battery or whatever has a half-life of 1 billion years. All the other pieces don't last forever.
It's bullshit.
Bullshit!
So yes, it's the ship The space station.
Yes.
It's crashed, the apes took over, they killed everyone, ran off, and made their own planet. The nerve of these guys! That is a wonderful example of crazy apes.
After all we've done for them.
Going ape shit. So look, everything has gone to shit. The refugee humans have turned up to the site. They're looking for Leo's help. And Thade, meanwhile, is leading a giant army towards them all for the final battle. And suddenly Leo doesn't seem too heroic for a moment.
Leo galloped back to Dana. He didn't know if he was up to the task of leading a rebellion. He didn't know if his life was worth risking for a people he had never met before a few short days ago.
Yeah, fuck those guys, thought Leo. I'm having a nap. But the war does begin, and Leo, of course, does what he does best.
Flames poured out of the rocket engines, instantly turning the rocky hillside to slag. The first 3 rows of ape soldiers vanished behind a wall of pure fire, and the rows behind them were tossed in the air by a blast of heat with the strength of a tornado.
So he's burning everybody alive. A horrible, horrible way to die.
Yeah, see, that is described really epically. It seems like it's doing a lot of damage, and of course, I mean, it's a rocket that goes into space. That's a lot of force. Oh, what does it do in the movie? It just knocks them off their horse. They're winded for a few minutes. All those apes, I'm pretty sure, got back up and kept fighting.
Yes, they would be incinerated. And Krull and Atta, they have a bloody battle, and Thade slices up humans with reckless abandon and then battles Marky Mark. He quickly followed with a punch that snapped Thade's head to the side. If not for the General's incredibly thick neck, the blow might have broken his jaw. I'm surprised it didn't break Marky Mark's fucking fist. Like, it's a chimpanzee. It would murder him or tear his face off.
Why is it that we can't help but refer to him as Marky Mark?
And then Thade beats him up, and he's about to finish him when...
The raising of his hand seemed like a magical gesture, calling down thunder, for as his fist went up, a deafening sound shook the sky. Startled, ape and human alike looked up. A white streak flashed across the sky, then arced around and slowed, heading straight for them.
And, of course, guess who it is? A chimpanzee stepped out of the pod, blinking in the sunlight. Around him, dust and light swirled, mimicking exactly the religious icon Leo had seen several times. Semos. So it is Pericles. So Pericles, Marky Mark, they hug it out. They have a big old hug, give each other the thumbs up. That's way too much for these suspicious apes. They all run away, they head for the hills, except for Thade. But Leo lures him into the Oberon and traps him in a room in the ship, where I guess he will wait and wait and wait and wait for a sequel that never materialised.
Yeah, also he just beat up Pericles. It's like, okay, the ape shows up and now, okay. And the book does not even actually go into the proper ending of the film.
Yeah, this is the ending of the book. And suddenly he was all pilot again, surrounded only by the instruments and controls of a ship he had been trained to fly. He ran through flight checks quickly, easily, almost as though what had just happened had never been, and in a moment the pod was rising into the air and rocketing past the reach of the planet's gravity.
But of course, it had happened. In all its sheer terror and wonder, he would miss Arya and he would miss Dana and Byrne. Really, Byrne? What? Anyway, but that place was not his home.
Well, Leo called up a star chart and tried to map his coordinates, but the star navigator bleeped and returned a simple message. Coordinates unknown.
No kidding, Leo replied.
Leo banked the ship along the gravity well of the planet of the apes, wink, and curled up into outer space. Before him, the endless bright cloud of the electromagnetic storm appeared just as he had seen it before. Leo set a course full speed for the center of the storm. He didn't know what would happen to him this time, but nothing could be worse than what he had been through, and nothing could be better than home. Home was worth the risk. And that is the end of the book, whereas the film has a crazy ending.
That makes no... Well, some people were like, oh no, I could see how that works. So basically what was set up is that he, Mark, comes to what he thinks is modern Earth in Washington, and he crashes at the Lincoln Memorial. He looks up, and it's Thade's head on Lincoln's body, and basically it says, oh, for all that Thade has done to establish modern culture, or some such thing. And then all these cops show up, and they're apes, and yeah, that's how it ends, so...
Then the audience goes, oh, scratches their head, and leaves the cinema dissatisfied, only to never think of this film again.
Yeah, because it's established that there's only one ship that Marky Mark was in. That was the only one you could get into that could get you back out into space and into some magical electrical storm. But I guess what they were trying to say is that they'd somehow beat him there to the future.
It's the Biff Tannen casino ending.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to ask, Courtney, as I always do, was the book better?
You know what? I think I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I'm going to side with the book as well. I think Toby Whitmore did a really great polished job on that
Really
turd.
like you, don't punch us, please.
So, well done, Toby Whitmore. High five, but not too hard, please.
Now, the makeup was that by Rick Baker or was that Stan Winston?
One of the two.
One of the two. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the only benefit of this film is visually all the design and stuff. It's like Jupiter Ascending. It looks great. It's just lacking in content. So much so.
It's just absolutely bewildering and batshit insane. So, I looked for Amazon reviews. Now, there were only 2, and one of them was clearly for an item that was not this book. It was for a behind-the-scenes big script book. And the person had gotten confused. Mm-hmm. So the only real review was actually on Goodreads, and it was French. So I put it through Babelfish, and this is what it gives us. This brilliant book use of the theory of relativity to bring us into a world where humans have abandoned their responsibilities. Which I think is a pretty great way of summing up this film.
Okay.
And, you know, those humans, why not put the burden on them, the blame on them for,
Use of the theory of relativity, but it wasn't a wormhole. It was an electromagnetic storm, apparently.
Well, France, am I right?
Use big words, make you sound smart.
Yeah, maybe something was lost in translation there.
Yes.
Which is a far better film. Well, look, thank you everybody for listening. This has been great to be back after a week's break. I want to make it very clear as well that we do have a bonus episode available. It's an episode of Book Was Better TV. Leah and I talked about Degrassi High. We read a book called Exit Stage Left, which had Yik Yi and a ghost at a school play and all sorts of wonderful crazy crap.
It's really great. I highly recommend it, guys. You should check it out.
And that episode is available to our Patreon subscribers. So go to patreon.com/fruitlesspursuits and you'll be able to access all the content there if you join up to support us. And we also, yesterday, recorded a Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode, which will be the bonus episode for August. So look out for that as well. And everything you can find out about us at fruitlesspursuits.com or geekvision.tv. The other podcast is FPcast, which is a general pop culture podcast. And like, rate, review, do all those things. Join us on our Facebook page, have a discussion. Everything's fun, be cool.
And sorry that I'm so intensely passionate about both Planet of the Apes and science. I nerded out a bit.
Never apologise. Look, if we can add a little bit of learning along the way, I think that's really important. And I've got to admit that when I watched that dinner scene, I wasn't thinking about the history of the human diet. And
I was literally looking at the table going, what are they eating? Is it raw food diet? Because if it's raw food diet, they can't afford all those calories in their brain.
Yeah, and now I will. Now I'll be more conscious of these things, as will the listeners, I'm sure.
I love science, Luke.
And I love crazy apes going apeshit, and I don't know if enough of them did.
We did a Miley Cyrus. We got the best of both worlds. Apes, science.
Yeah.
Not great examples of either of those things, but we did get 2 things.
Whole lot of apes, and no roller skates or tricycles among them, and I found that a little bit disappointing. I'd rather watch Lancelot Link Secret Chimp.
I would rather watch Escape from the Planet of the Apes, in which Zira and Cornelius have a fashion montage.
Oh, when they go shopping.
I love that so much. I was beaming. It was just so adorable.
They are weird films. They're not what I thought they were going to be. The first one is exactly what I thought it was going to be, but then with all the time travel and craziness, there really is only one true Planet of the Apes. Even the Planet of the Apes movies aren't always on a Planet of the Apes, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's they do some weird, different things, but honestly, I do love all of them. Except for the Tim Burton one and that War of the Planet of the Apes. every one of them I really enjoy, and the novel is also quite good as well. Very French. So French.
Yeah, and that was French. And that was probably what this reviewer was thinking about. So everything becomes full circle. Bottom line is, don't abandon your responsibilities and be nice to apes.
Yeah, they are our closest living relatives.
And cook your food.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Courtney.
You are most welcome.
Want to say the thing?
Catch you on the flip.
Jumanji.